The storm outside was merciless. Cold wind howled between the steel towers of the city as rain poured down like shards of glass, slicing through the night. Inside one of those towers, in a sleek glass office that touched the clouds, sat Ethan Cole, the youngest self-made CEO in the city, known for his ruthless efficiency and his unshakable calm. To most people, he was a legend in a tailored suit, a man who turned businesses into gold and never let emotion get in the way of success. But tonight, as thunder echoed across the skyline, a small sound changed everything, a hesitant, trembling knock at his office door. When Ethan opened it, he froze. There, standing in the cold hallway, was a little girl, no more than 7 years old, soaked to the bone, clutching a torn teddy bear. Her eyes, wide, frightened, and glistening with tears, met his. Her voice trembled as she whispered, "Please, sir, they hurt my mom, she's dying. If you believe that kindness can still change lives and that everyone deserves a second chance, please take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to I Am Kindness Corner. Your support helps us spread hope, compassion, and humanity, one story at a time." For a few seconds, Ethan didn't move. He stood frozen, his heartbeat echoing louder than the thunder outside. The little girl's lips quivered as she tried to hold back sobs. Her small hand clutched at the edge of his coat, leaving wet marks on the fabric. Something inside him, something he thought was long gone, stirred. He bent down, his voice softer than it had ever been. "What did you say?" he asked quietly. Her reply came like a knife to the chest. "They hurt her. My mom. She fell, she can't breathe." The elevator ride down to the parking lot felt endless. Ethan carried the girl in his arms, her tiny body shaking from the cold. She told him her name was Lily. Between broken breaths, she explained that her mother had been cleaning the lobby of Ethan's own company. Working the night shift as a janitor, when she slipped on a wet floor left unattended after a construction team had packed up. No one helped her. Security guards laughed, told her to move out of the way. By the time Lily ran for help, everyone had ignored her. Ethan's mind raced. He was the CEO of that building. His employees. His responsibility. The thought that someone could suffer, and be ignored, under his own roof made his chest tighten painfully. When they reached the lobby, the sight shattered him. A woman lay motionless near a bucket and a mop, her breathing shallow, face pale and drained. Blood had mixed with the cleaning water, forming pink streaks across the tiles. Lily let go of his hand and fell to her knees beside her mother. "Mommy! Wake up, please," she cried, shaking her gently. Ethan knelt beside them, feeling an ache in his throat he hadn't felt since his own mother's funeral years ago. Without wasting another second, he called for an ambulance and pressed his hand against the woman's pulse, whispering, "Hold on, please hold on." The woman's name was Maria Alvarez. She was a single mother who had worked double shifts for months just to keep her daughter fed. She cleaned Ethan's corporate offices, often unnoticed, invisible to the very people who walked past her every day. Ethan didn't know her, but when he saw the paramedics lifting her onto the stretcher, her frail body trembling under the oxygen mask, he felt like he had failed someone who trusted him, even if she didn't know his name. At the hospital, Ethan sat outside the emergency room with Lily asleep in his arms. The sterile white lights flickered above, the smell of antiseptic filling the air. Every sound from the emergency ward made him flinch. Hours passed. Finally, a doctor stepped out, his expression grave. "She suffered internal bleeding. We managed to stabilize her for now, but it's critical. She needs immediate surgery." The doctor hesitated. "Unfortunately, without insurance or consent from a family member, we can't proceed." Ethan didn't think twice. "Do whatever it takes," he said, his voice firm. "Put everything under my name." The surgery lasted all night. By dawn, the rain had stopped. The city outside glowed faintly under the silver morning light. Ethan hadn't moved from the waiting bench. Lily slept curled beside him, clutching his sleeve. When the doctor finally emerged, exhaustion written on his face, Ethan stood up immediately. "She's alive," the doctor said slowly, "but she's very weak. The next 24 hours are critical." When Ethan entered the recovery room, he froze once again. Maria lay hooked to tubes and machines, her face pale but peaceful. Lily ran to her side, gripping her mother's hand tightly. Ethan stood at the doorway, unsure what to say, feeling like an intruder in a moment that wasn't his. Then Maria's eyes fluttered open. She looked weakly around before her gaze fell on him. "You're Mr. Cole," she whispered hoarsely. He nodded silently. Her lips trembled into a faint smile. "Thank you, for helping my little girl." Those simple words struck Ethan harder than any business loss ever could. Over the next few days, Ethan found himself visiting the hospital every evening. He brought food, clothes, and even small toys for Lily. Slowly, he learned their story. Maria had once been a teacher in her home country, but after her husband's death, she came to the city with Lily, taking whatever job she could find. She never complained, never begged, just worked quietly, cleaning floors that others dirted, earning barely enough to survive. Lily was everything to her. She always said, "I'm her sunshine," Lily told him one afternoon, sitting by her mother's bedside, coloring a paper flower. "Even when she's tired, she smiles when I tell her I love her." Something inside Ethan began to change. For years, his world had been numbers, profits, contracts, all clean, efficient, and heartless. But now, every time he saw Maria's fragile hands, every time he watched Lily's hopeful smile, something cracked in the walls he built around himself. He began questioning everything, his company's culture, his choices, his silence when others suffered. Then came the day that shattered him again. Maria's condition suddenly worsened. The machines beeped frantically, nurses rushed in, and Lily screamed as doctors pushed Ethan aside. Hours later, the same doctor who had once brought good news walked toward him, shaking his head. "We tried everything," he said softly. Her body couldn't take it anymore. Lily's cry echoed through the sterile halls like a sound the world wasn't meant to hear. Ethan held her as she screamed for her mother, her tiny hands clutching his shirt until her knuckles turned white. That night, for the first time in years, Ethan cried, not as a CEO, not as a man of power, but as a human being who had just realized how fragile life really was. Days turned into weeks. The funeral was small, quiet, just Ethan, Lily, and a few hospital staff who had grown fond of Maria. There were no fancy flowers, no expensive caskets, just a simple wooden box and the whisper of the wind. When it was time to lower her into the earth, Lily placed her teddy bear beside the coffin and whispered, "Now you won't be alone, Mommy." Ethan's heart broke all over again. After the funeral, he couldn't bring himself to leave Lily at the orphanage. She had no relatives, nowhere to go. So, against every expectation, and every business advisor's warning, Ethan took her home. His penthouse, once cold and silent, slowly filled with warmth. Her laughter echoed in the marble halls, her drawings covered the walls of his office. She called him Uncle Ethan, and every morning she would wait by the door just to hug him before he left for work. But the biggest change happened inside Ethan's company. The incident that had taken Maria's life became a turning point. He launched new policies, fair wages, insurance for every employee, emergency safety programs. He personally met with the janitorial staff, listened to their stories, and promised no one would ever be invisible again. Slowly, his empire, once built on ambition, began to grow on compassion. Months later, on a bright spring morning, Ethan took Lily to the same spot where her mother was buried. The grass had grown green again, small flowers blooming along the grave. He placed a bouquet of lilies and whispered, "You didn't die in vain, Maria. You changed me. You changed everything." Lily knelt beside the grave and smiled softly. "Mommy, I'm okay. Uncle Ethan takes care of me now. You can rest." A breeze swept across the field, gentle and warm, almost as if the earth itself was whispering back. When they drove back home, Lily fell asleep in the back seat, her teddy bear tucked under her arm. Ethan glanced at her through the mirror and thought of all the nights she had cried herself to sleep in his arms, all the mornings she woke up smiling despite the pain. He realized something profound: sometimes, the smallest hearts carry the greatest strength, and sometimes, tragedy becomes the seed of transformation. That night, as the city lights shimmered outside, Ethan sat by the window, looking at the world he once ruled without feeling. He now understood that power meant nothing if it couldn't heal, and wealth meant nothing if it couldn't be shared. He made a silent promise to keep Maria's kindness alive through every act of compassion he could give. If this story touched your heart, please like, share, comment, and subscribe to I Am Kindness Corner. Help us continue sharing stories that remind the world that humanity still exists, that kindness is not weakness, and that every heart can heal through compassion. And before you go, please leave a comment below. Speech balloon: what did you feel when the little girl knocked on the CEO's door? Because sometimes, it's in the moments we least expect, when a child knocks, when a stranger helps, when a heart breaks, that the world finds its way back to kindness again.